So, in the sense, there's a truth to it in that a whole bunch of things reach their maximum volume and capacity right about then. And you obviously, and particularly, my particular question is, does this part up here with your, executive planning and judgment, your capacity for reason right there in that frontal cortex of your brain, does that reach maximum volume at that point? This doesn't answer that. But that's an interesting side tangent. I didn't think I was going to run into that today. How about a little something fun? Before we get into other things, how about a little something fun? From IFL Science, which if you don't know is I fucking love science, which I do, hence the shirt. What percentage of the human brain do we use? It may be an enticing prospect that we have bags of untapped brain power using just 10% of our brains, but that doesn't mean there's any truth to it. Now, I chuckle at this because I'm seeing this article now. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what on this one. I don't think they mention it in here, but this actually popped up as for those of you who are old enough to remember the Mythbusters. Jamie Hyneman, Adam Savage, all the rest. It was a Discovery Channel show many years ago. Don't think it's on anymore, but or they tried to reboot it and their reboot flopped. But that was actually one of the myths they tested on the show was whether or not you use 10% of your brain. Now lately with some of the things going on, it feels like folks are using much less than 10% of their brain. That's a whole other thing, but but I figured this might be a fun thing to start the week with. If you cast your mind back to 2014, you may remember a certain film that got us all talking about brain capacity. Lucy, name of the film, was based on the premise that we only use 10% of our brains, and while we know that to be a myth, it still begs the question, what percentage of our brain do we actually use? Come with us as we attempt to debunk one of Hollywood's favorite bits of cerebral pseudoscience. This is actually really, really old as a myth, too. It actually also appeared in The Simpsons, which, if I could find it, which, hold on a second, I may try and find that real quick. Well, no, actually, no, I won't do that, because I don't need to risk a copyright issue on that one. Let's see. What percentage of the human brain do we use? The brain is made up of three main regions, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Different areas of the brain function both independently and together to coordinate tasks, so depending on what you're doing, the amount of brain being utilized will vary. While it may be true that not every region is always firing at any given moment, this doesn't mean that some parts go unused. So, if you're wondering, back here, back of your head, that's the occipital lobe of your brain, for example. You use that that's everything visual input comes in back there is processed back there. That is sometimes, I think also, if I recall correctly, though folks can correct me if I'm wrong, if you end up taking a hit to the back of the head where it can you can end up damaging your eyesight because you've damaged that part of your brain. Back there. Front part of your brain up here, that's part of judgment, executive decisions that you're making. That's all right there. Somewhere down here in the limbic node is all the emotional centers of your brain, that kind of thing. So it's all sorts of fun stuff going on there. We use virtually every part of our brain. Neurologist Barry Gordon at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine in Baltimore told Scientific American in 2008. That tells you how old this myth is. Most of the brain is active all the time. In fact, in a 24-hour period, all regions of our most complex organ will get used. Even when we're resting or sleeping, much of the brain is active. Now, this is, of course, interesting because one of the things that makes it concerning with the amount of television and social media and internet and things like that is whether or not, you're staring at a screen all the time, because that can drive, at least from some of the things that I've read, drive your brainwave patterns down and just kind of not do any good for your brain, let's put it that way. Muted activity, if you will. At least from some of the studies I've seen. Again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that. But the human brain is easily the most complicated organ in your body. for all the stuff that it controls. And it's also interesting because a lot of the kinds of things with machine learning, AI, neural networks, neural network modeling and statistics basically tries to mimic how the human brain learns. Or how the human mind learns, or how the human mind works. And I actually have tried doing neural net setups before on a computer, and it is extremely difficult to do, actually. So I have a lot to learn about that before I could even try doing that myself, but I have tried doing that. That's a tricky, fun thing to do. So it's a challenge to try and mimic the human brain with a computer. Evidence would show over a day you use 100% of the brain, added John Henley, a neurologist at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. That doesn't necessarily mean that removing part of the brain or sustaining brain damage leaves people unable to perform day-to-day tasks, Henley continued. The brain has a way of compensating and making sure that what's left takes over the activity. It's this plasticity that explains how some people missing parts of their brain are remarkably still able to function. Take the case of a bilingual woman missing part of the brain responsible for language processing, for example. Still can speak 2 languages or more. Your brain is amazing. Treat it well. How do we know 10% is a fallacy? A technique called functional magnetic resonance imaging, the fMRI, has been used to disprove the 10% myth. Incidentally, this was used in a Mythbusters episode, actually, in that very same Mythbusters episode I mentioned. I forget which season it is, but it was certainly an interesting episode. I remember it. I used to be quite a diehard Mythbusters fan myself back in the day, but it was that. It measures blood flow and oxygenation in the brain to detect activity in different regions. This technique has found that, even when performing simple tasks, much more than just a tenth of the brain is active. But maybe, quote, but maybe the 10% number refers to the number of brain cells, wrote Claudia Hammond in 2012 for BBC Future. Again, this doesn't work. When any nerve cells are going spare, they either degenerate and die off, or they are colonized by other areas nearby. We simply don't let our brain cells hang around idly. Then there's the fact that the 10% figure is simply nonsensical. Neuroscientist Amy Reichelt, I think I butchered the pronunciation, argued in 2014 for The Conversation. Our brains make up just 2% of our body mass and yet use 20% of our energy. Why would we waste such a large amount of our bodily resources to power only a tiny percentage of it? So there you have it. The 10% misconception is consigned to sci-fi. And while we're on the topic of brain-based myths, we're happy to tell you that your brain doesn't stop developing at 25 either. Really? Hang on. Just curious. Prefrontal cortex at brain region, multiple suggestions. In that very research, the dorsi are observed to vary greatly between individuals, even being generally completed a year or two earlier than women. The reason why we still don't know. Okay. The researchers behind a 2022 paper in the journal Nature made charts of how the human brain grows over a lifetime, looking at volumes of different tissue in the brain via 123,984 MRI scans from 101,457 participants. Damn. The age range of the participants was vast, ranging from 115 days post-conception to 100 years old. Wow. We generally have an understanding of how big the human brain is, but we have never been able to measure this with such precision or at such a large scale across the whole lifetime. The study's co-first authors, Richard Bethlehem of Cambridge, University of Cambridge, and Jacob Seidlitz of University of Pennsylvania and Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, told IFL Science. There's no single data set that could answer this question, though it's has been only through the global effort that we've been able to virtually stitch together dozens of neuroimaging data sets at a massive scale. Additionally, provide what can the data tell us about how the brain develops in our younger years, and how does this compare to later stages in life? Perhaps somewhat unsurprisingly, we find that the basic morphologic properties that we measure have their peak early on in development, even before the 6th year of life. So changes are much more rapid early in development, while in later stages of life, the changes are more subtle and gradual. We find that individual variability is highest in adolescence and young adulthood, when when individuals with psychiatric disorders are typically diagnosed. However, it's very unlikely that there could be a one-size-fits-all timeline for brain development over a lifetime. We find that there is enormous inter-individual variability, but also that it really depends on the specific property that you're measuring. Um, We also acknowledge that even with 125,000 scans, we still don't fully full and comprehensive picture of the true variation in the population, as these are still interesting acronym right here. I hadn't seen that one before. So is the brain ever fully mature, and how does this affect how we think? This all depends by and large on how you define maturation. We find that depending on where you look in the brain and the property you measure, there are peaks at certain ages where the given property reaches maximum, but we also see that changes still happen time after that time. Is the age of 25 specifically significant for the brain? The mid-20s number doesn't come entirely out of the blue, as it is an age where many brain regions have reached their maximum volume, for example. However, this does not absolutely imply that the brain then stops being malleable to change, nor does it mean that up until that point the brain would not be capable of functioning at a developed level. The intricacies of how these maturational trajectories of different brain systems and properties intersect with cognitive development are not fully elucidated. Well, ain't that interesting? So in the sense, there's a truth to it, in that a whole bunch of things reach their maximum volume and capacity right about then. And you obviously, and particularly, my particular question is, does this part up here with your, executive planning and judgment, your capacity for reason right there in that frontal cortex of your brain, does that reach maximum volume at that point? This doesn't answer that. But that's an interesting side tangent. I didn't think I was going to run into that today. I hope you all enjoy that. But feel great in the knowledge that you are using more than 10% of your brain. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button on the way out the door. Comment on the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, all the good jazz. Till next time, I'm Adrian. Stay curious, everybody.